Republicans are all over the place right now. They are visibly scrambling, trying to find something to get Kamala for. For example, they're downplaying her record-setting $81 million windfall in donations, saying that most of that money came from big money donors, from the millionaires and the billionaires.
And the sad thing, I think, to me, Martha, is that's a big number, but these are these millionaires and billionaires people have to remember out there who are willing to do anything to stop Donald Trump, no matter how bad it might be for this country. And quite frankly, I can't think of something more frightening than Joe Biden running the country, except for maybe Kamala Harris.
I don't know how they can pretend to believe that billionaires are a bad thing when their nominee is an actual billionaire. It's also false. The $81 million in donations primarily came from small and first-time donors, from 880,000 individual donors. That said, the Future Forward Democratic Super PAC did also receive $150 million in new commitments within the same 24-hour window as those $81 million were collected, and those are expected to be from larger donors. But they're saying that she is conducting a coup against Joe Biden, calling her Kamala Harris. And up until Wednesday, they were asking, where is Joe? Implying that Kamala had him and Jill, I don't know, stuffed in a van or something. It had only been a few days between his announcement on Sunday and his address on Wednesday. How often do we usually see or expect to see the president? It wasn't that weird. And then, imagine my surprise when I get on X yesterday and I see that Jussie Smollett is trending.
All right, Kamala's made countless mistakes in her career, but don't expect her to ever own up to these. Remember when she rushed to judgment with the Jussie Smollett, the hate crime hoax? She called it, quote, an attempted modern-day lynching.
For those of you who don't remember, Jussie Smollett was the actor who faked a hate crime. Smollett, who is black and gay, claimed that he was the victim of an unprovoked and seemingly bigoted attack in the streets of Chicago. His attackers, he said, punched him in the face, poured some chemical on him, and put a noose around his neck, all while yelling racist and homophobic slurs at him, telling him this is MAGA country. Of course, all of it turned out to be fake, and while the story felt a little off from the get-go, people were quick to believe the story, mainly because why would someone from not one, but two marginalized communities make up a story like that, knowing that it would set back the work of so many elected officials and activists who are dealing with actual hate crimes and incidents of discrimination against those same communities? Also, why would an actor who's finally getting some good screen time risk his entire career over something that just never happened? It was all so dumb. But yes, before it became clear that all of this was a hoax and that the plot was full of holes, a lot of people from Hollywood to Washington, D.C., and everywhere in between offered public support for Smollett while decrying the consequences of violent and hateful MAGA rhetoric. Kamala Harris was one of those people. So now, in an effort to attack Kamala Harris for seemingly anything at this point, right-wing media is reminding people that Kamala supported Jussie Smollett years ago, before we all learned that Smollett had made up his entire story. Once more details came out about the attack, no one was defending him anymore. Many of those same people who initially supported him ended up criticizing him for lying about something so dangerous. That's one of the key differences between the two sides. Some people are willing to adjust their beliefs and feelings when presented with new information. Others will just double down on whatever their initial gut reactions were, despite the change in circumstance. But it's interesting that they chose this, of all things, to harp on Harris for, when Donald Trump, who was president at the time, also condemned the alleged attack. During a White House presser in the Oval Office, Trump said of the attack, "It doesn't get worse as far as I'm concerned." More pressing and more relevant, however, are new efforts from the Republicans to impeach Vice President Kamala Harris. And if this move does not scream desperation and defensiveness, then I don't know what does. Brought by Republican Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee. Just a couple of days after Biden dropped out of the race, Ogles claimed that Harris had committed high crimes and misdemeanors in her role as the so-called border czar for the Biden administration. And by the way, that's not an actual role that Harris is now filling or has ever filled. So, the same old thing. They just want to impeach her because she's not as tough against immigration as they would like her to be, regardless of the facts that illegal border crossings are down 55%. June 2024 saw the least number of illegal migrants crossing the border since Biden took office, and Republicans blocked the bipartisan border security bill. However, immigration is a major campaigning point for the GOP, and they know that it riles up their base, so that's what they're going with. To be fair, crossings were lower during the Trump administration than they are during the Biden administration, but they are trending downward. Also, it doesn't make any sense for an opposing party to sue the party in control because they disagree on policy and execution. Of course they disagree on policy. That is why we have different parties within a democracy. That's why we have a representative government. It's a function of that representative democracy, not a flaw within the system. If you want to do things differently, then win an election, and then you can. There's so much more that Republicans are trying to do to attack Harris. For one, there are rumors that they're already trying to replace J.D. Vance on the ticket. That is arguably more embarrassing than what happened with Biden for the Dems. With Biden, the Dems were locked into a situation where they had an incumbent president that they didn't know what to do with. The Trump team chose Vance all on their own, presumably after months of careful deliberation, only to immediately change their collective mind a week later. Over on TikTok, a doctored video of Kamala slurring her words during a speech began circulating as Biden dropped out of the race. The video was eventually taken down, but only after it had already gone viral. There is a picture that I saw on social media floating around of Harris dressed up as Hitler. I'm not even sure how they got all the way to that point. Nikki Haley is now suing a group called Haley Voters for Harris because they're using her name. Not sure how much of a case she's got there. And more. It's not saying much to say that we can expect that these sorts of attacks will continue over the next few weeks and months. And it will only get worse, right? More inflammatory, more ridiculous, more perhaps divisive. But the Democrats finally have an upper hand. The Republicans are suddenly on defense and they're not handling it well. The Democrats and Harris now have the challenge of quickly stabilizing and establishing themselves within the race so that they can get to work on campaigning properly. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.